launching today, I see that we have several people that have joined us, and they will not be disappointed because I am not alone in reviewing this book. I have with me two distinguished people in addition to the author. Uh, Before I introduce my distinguished panelists, let me just say that I have been literally a student of uh, the person I call Oga Cyril for close to I would say close to 30 years. I was one of the recipients of his first book, Lamentations, which spoke to me a lot. Uh, and I remember in the 90s selling several of those books. And this one is just another worthy addition to not only African literature, but to the collection of narrative on the Nigerian Civil War and Biafra. Um, so I've written a review of the book because I really enjoyed reading the book. It spoke to me. I was a young boy during the Civil War, and several passages there spoke to me. And so we'll be talking about that shortly. But before I do that, I need to introduce my fellow panelists. First of all, we have Mrs. Evangeline A. Ugoji, who upon researching her, I would call a Renaissance person, a cultural connoisseur. In this vein, she appreciates, promotes, and supports progressive aspects of the cultures that she's exposed to. She's also a passionate uh, consumer of literature and literary works, and is currently working on her collection of poems and prose, which she assures us she will be publishing very soon.
Wow. Okay.
She's a linguist. She's fluent in English, French, Spanish, and the everyday variations of Pidgin English. Uh, she is fluent in the Igbo language and its various dialects. Evangeline is a longtime resident of Trenton, New Jersey, which for her has become a home away from home in Nigeria. She's a consummate public servant, civil organizer, and community activist in Trenton city politics. And then we have Mrs. Amadi, who is enjoying her retirement after over 20 years working for the Internal Revenue Service. I thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you.
She was awarded the United States 20 years IRS award for her loyal and devoted service. Before her tenure at the IRS, Cecilia had worked in various capacities for the city of New York. For the past 15 years, the congregation of St. Savior at St. John, the Divine Cathedral in New York, has trusted her with their funds as the congregation's treasurer. Cecilia is also highly regarded in her Nzuko Aruchukwu, New York, New Jersey community. She has served as the first and hopefully not the last female president of this prestigious cultural organization. She is currently the trusted treasurer of the group. Finally, but not the least, Dr. Cyril Orji is retired after over 20 years in the industry as a software engineer with telecommunication companies and defense contractors, and nearly 15 years in academia as a computer science professor. Cyril is an attentive observer. He enjoys talking about politics and writing short stories based on everyday observation. His debut book, Lamentations of an Immigrant Bringing Up a Family in the Diaspora, is still available for whomever wants to read it. It's a great book. I also recommend it. His latest book, Why We Are Here, First is Last, is a fictional recollection of the experiences of the Igbo people during the Nigerian Civil War. He currently blogs about everything at cyrg.wordpress.com. Initially, this is a great thing. Initially, I had thought I was the only one that had read the book, but this is not true. Literally, every person on this panel has read this book, and I believe Ms. Ugoji has read the book twice. So we are going to have a very good time talking about the book, and also having a dialogue with the author about the book. So I'll talk briefly about the book, then I will ask my fellow panelists to talk about their impressions of the book. Listen to me, I've been reviewing books for like 20, 30 years. I like this book. I am a student of the narrative on the Nigerian Civil War, and by my estimation, there are at least 100 books written on the Civil War. And this one, from my perspective, is a very important, very unique addition to the narrative about the Civil War. It is important that those who experienced that war speak up in song, speak up in writing about what happened, because in my view, Nigeria will never be the same until we come to closure on what happened from 1967 to 1970. And this book will take you through it. One primary reason I like this book is there are very few books where an inanimate object becomes a character. And there is a book, this book has 34 Chukwani. This compound is literally a character in the book. And you follow it. You follow the book, you follow the compound, and you follow the owners of that compound in peacetime. And your heart breaks when the compound breaks down, literally. It's a metaphor for what Nigeria was. That particular compound, Chukwani, 34 Chukwani. I liked it so much, I was telling the author, maybe you should have named the book 34 Chukwani. And he was laughing, but you even through the war, from the beginning to the end, the focus is on what happens to the inhabitants of as they spread out and as they try to reconnect. Many of us who I was a 6-year-old during the war, and I was in Benin City when the Biafrans overran Benin City. I don't know how many of you will remember that. And it was quite traumatic. So actually I was an 8-year-old, and my little brother was a 6-year-old. And I remember the trauma of war at that time. So reading this book and reading the terms Afia attack, reading about the Red Cross, about wheat, about milk, about oporoko, stockfish, literally triggered me, because these were I was exposed to as a little much of the war, but they brought these things for us as relief materials, and we were eating stockfish, we were using milk, we were using wheat. I found out quickly that I am lactose intolerant, because I would take milk, and me and the other boys will sprint to the latrines of our school. They meant well, but they didn't know that these are things that you really didn't do to West Africans. So I urge you, I ask you to buy this book, to support this book, and to read it, because it is very important that we remember. It is also very important that our children and our grandchildren remember what happened. I am now in a phase where I am now buying books from Africa and sending them to my 4 kids to read, because it is important. We won't be around forever, but they need to know the joys, the trauma of what happened too. So that's an initial introduction about the book from my perspective. I'm going to ask Ms. Ugorji to take over and talk about the book from her reading of it and from her perspective.
So thank you, Paikide. Again, my name is Evangeline Ugorji. What I wanted to highlight in the book from preparations prior to this moment in time was what I thought that the book in its writings offers to both the young and older generations in the ways of the folklore and culture, past, present, and futuristic, I believe, to everyone who reads the book or everyone who does not know about those things relating to the Igbos. About the folklore, these things are manifested in the amongst the characters, as Pai Kide mentioned, the residents of 34 Chukwani Street. And you can see these throughout the book during the interactions of the residents, the families, the children, in the stories that they told in the evenings, in the games that they played in the compounds, and during school times with the advent of the colonialists and their parochial schools. The children maintained folklore games and tales that kept them busy during those periods. Of specific importance and mention is the stories pertaining to the Igbos regarding the advent of the characters that are otherwise known as Obanje or known as Obanje in the book. These are characters that have the capability to, die and reincarnate, sometimes to the same families, maybe other families. You see this told in that book to the appreciative consumption of those of us who were raised within that culture and do know of that. And for those of our brothers and sisters out here in the diaspora that were born and raised here or brought here when they were much younger, when you read through that, you get to appreciate that in case that was not known to you. Along those same lines, there are the mentions of other characters such as the Dibiers, who are the native doctors. There is the male and female native doctors who possessed supernatural knowledge of plants and herbs and their healing powers and other modalities of keeping the community going, both in good times and especially in these here Biafran war times. I appreciated the what I would call the progressive mention by Mazi Orji, especially to the female Dibia, because it basically states that what the males did then, there were also females who did that. And I thought that was progressive in nature to mention that lady, that the Dibia Nwani was of the 38 Chukwani Street address. 34 Chukwani Street also had his own Dibia. And then there was also this very knowledgeable and renowned sought after Mazi Ugu of Mbabu Owa during the times of the war. And I thought that that was interesting to highlight and bring out, especially to the younger generations who do not know about these things. Furthermore, into the book, the showings of culture were manifested in the periodic new religious holidays that were celebrated, religious in the sense that these were brought about by the colonial influences through the parochial process of the churches and what were celebrated in those new religions as they were introduced. However, traditionally and culturally, Mazi also writes proliferately about the cultures that were inexistent and still persist to today, and I believe into the appreciable future for the younger generations, as manifested in the mentions of the celebrations of the masquerade dances, their restrictions, their competitions. I think those were appreciable, and I wanted to highlight that for the younger generation and appreciably for those who were brought up and do know about them, or might have forgotten about them because unfortunately, one of the phenomenons of living out here in the diaspora is that I noticed that some of our people have forgotten where they came from in terms of cultures and traditions. This book, for the sophisticated reader and on an academic level, I think brings these things to the forefront and appreciably so for all generations, which is why I recommend the reading, because it gives these things to the people. There were also, songs and music that were highlighted in the book. Along the lines of culture and tradition are also um, mentions, and extensively so, about life in general. Life as it relates to childbirth, what goes into the celebration of childbirth, the tradition in terms of how the women celebrated and received and supported the person of childbirth, because it is essential and key to the existence of the Igbos, and I would say transculturally and universally, since birth in and of itself is very important to the continuation of the generations and the populations of anywhere, any and everywhere globally. The Igbos hold that very strongly to heart, and there was a lot of um, extensive writings about how the women celebrate and encourage each other in this process of childbirth. Mazi also writes prolifically about the death of people, celebrations of death based on the individual, based on the culture and tradition, based on the status of the person who is dead and who is being celebrated. Also depends on the death and how that death occurs, whether it's by natural means, by accidental means, such as was, brought about by the Biafran War, and or perhaps circumstances uh, that were brought about by the war, such as I remember in the book the incidents of the gentleman who committed suicide because he had lost all his family. And so he no longer had the passion or zeal for life and subsequently committed suicide. In the culture and tradition of the Igbos, in celebration of death, such things are frowned upon. However, there was an exception in this instance because of the extenuating circumstances, and the book, explains that appreciably. I would say, to the person and or persons who do not know about the culture and traditions of the Igbo, such that there was an exception made, and it was nicely explained and clearly so for the academic reader to understand what goes into celebrations of death. They also talked about courtship in the Igbo culture in the book during normal times, and still certainly during these Biafran times. And I thought that was nice, sense that the consequences of the war itself, this resilient group of people, the Igbos, tried to live life as normally as they could, continuing life for the benefit of those who were alive. The dead were mourned, and very respectfully so, but life continued as best as they can, as best as they could amongst themselves. And I thought that was nice. So in the mention of marriage and the courtships, there were the explanations about what constituted proper courtships and what were considered improper courtships in terms of the dignity accorded to the process. And in that regard, I think Mazi wrote, I would say, futuristically and progressively when he explained, for my personal consumption, the fact that sexuality, puberty, and maturity was a dual thing for both males and females. And appreciably so, I saw that, and I read that with particular interest. And I thought that that would speak to the current generation in terms of what was considered proper in good times and even during the war.
That's a good point. That's a good point, especially being a younger person in here. So obviously I wasn't born in the 60s, but that's obviously a good point for some of the younger people in here to understand that this book, although it talks about the Civil War that happened in the late 60s, early 70s, there are a lot of things that still kind of spill into our lives here as the younger generation. I just want to quickly turn everyone's attention to the chats. We actually had 2 donations so far. So we had Dr. Obina Orji pledge 100. And if you turn your attention to the chat, He says, I pledge $100 to this launching. This is a critical work for Nigerian millennials such as myself, which is what we're talking about, to learn about our history from our own historians. As well, we have Pa Akita
And I
himself.
pledged $100.
There you go. He pledged $100 himself. So in the chat, you can see there, right? Zelle, CYOrgy at yahoo.com. That's where you can pledge. And you can also put in the chat whenever you do pledge. I've enabled the chat for everybody. So if you feel the zeal to donate, you can just type it in the chat and we'll definitely shout you out. We also have a hand raised from May and Manny. So I'll actually allow May to speak first.
Now, could we let, I would like Mrs. Ugoji to finish.
Okay.
Yeah, before, if you don't mind, she's
I wanted to make sure we brought attention to the donations, but
sure,
much appreciated.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I don't have much more to say. In wrapping up, I just basically wanted to say that, as the young brother mentioned, these aspects of the book that I'm trying to highlight, I believe is what makes it relevant in the current. I believe is what speaks to not only those who were born in those war times. I personally don't remember those war times. Perhaps I was a toddler, perhaps I was an infant, I don't know. But I, as a cultural aficionado and connoisseur of sorts, appreciate any and everything about culture, especially the one into which I was born and others. And so I wanted to highlight those things for the consumption of those of our children that were born and raised out here in the diaspora, to understand that there are appreciable aspects of their culture that they could learn by reading this book. And into the future. And to Pa Ikita's point earlier in his own brief initial review, I believe that there is the need to continue this narrative and this story about Biafra and the Igbo peoples, because when one keeps quiet about their experiences, they're all too often relegated to the past, marginalized, minimized, if not obscured.
Yeah.
And outright obliterated. I did mention to Mazi Cyril about this here that I considered what happened in the Biafra to be Nigeria's own Holocaust. Yeah. He thinks that's too extreme. I personally don't think there's anything extreme about it. Case in point, the word Holocaust that we are all too often reminded about is about the Jews and their experience in Germany. Out here in the Americas, America did not visit the Holocaust on the Jews. America welcomed them in their diaspora and fleeing that experience. However, today, because of the continuity of the mention of that decrying of that experience for their ancestors, Holocaust has become synonymous with the Jews, and therefore to the forefront and conscious recollection of everybody, whether they visited them with that or not. And I believe the descendants of Biafra, past, present, and future, should likewise do the same thing. Okay. So I will keep it there for now.
All right. So Uchenna, there were two questions, right?
Yes. So
but before I say that, I just want to appreciate Mrs. Amadi's brilliant take on the book. It's exactly at the beginning I said that you start reading the book thinking you are going to delve into war, but then you see a community with culture, with customs, and with structures, and you see it implode and come back because of the determination of a people not to be erased. Go ahead, Uchenna.
Okay, thank you. Once again, we have another pledge. We have Mr. Obioha Chijoke. I will read his comment in the chat. Dear Cyril Orji, on behalf of my wife and I, we congratulate you and your lovely wife on your latest book titled First is Last. Though I have not read it and I'm not presently in the USA, I thank you for sending a copy up front of the launch date. I surely will devour it once I lay my hands on it. We'll drop our token of $200 towards the ongoing launch events. We hope the book will draw huge readership and accomplish all the goals the authors set out. Once again, congratulations from Dr. Mazi Obi and Ezinye Me Chijoke. So thank you so much for that pledge. And we do have one question from Manny, and so I will allow them to talk now. So you can actually just unmute yourself and then you'll be able to talk.
Yes, my name is Manny Odenakachi. I'm actually in a local level. I'm the president of our association, Zukaru, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, extended to Tennessee. Dr. Seriology is one of our patrons. And I would like to say this. He has written so many books. And I feel first is last, will not be the last one. I haven't read this book actually, but I'm eager to read it because if I don't want to hear stories about this book yet, because if I hear stories, I will be down to read. I will not be able to read it. I want to be eager to read it because that man, he writes volumes and he writes facts. Those who doesn't know Dr. Cyril Orji and the wife, Adam Moji, they are philanthropic in nature, very honest, straight shooters, and a man of integrity. I respect them for that. And my entire community respect them. Dr. Cyril, I wish you the best on whatever you and your family are doing. I know you help us a lot. You help us even as a patron, do secretary job for us because you are a writer. All I'm trying to say, congratulations. And I beg every one of us here in this forum, if you extend this to two people will extend it to another two people, it will go global. That's what we need. I don't want to take too much of your time. I'll support this book with $200.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
We thank you so much for that pledge and your kind words. I'll pass it back to Pai Kide and Mrs. Amadi.
Yeah, I am going to ask Mrs. Amadi to give us her insights on the book to the extent that she has read it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Muted. Okay.
Well, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I've read other stuff from Dr. G, and I've always acknowledged him as a very great writer because I am into writing too, even though I don't write mine, but I can appreciate, acknowledge good ones when I see them because I was more or less a literature student. So Mazi, thank you. Jidekiji. My big impression or what really got me on this first is last is the role reversal. Role reversal, what the children of these days see is that things in the family are shared 50-50, or mother is mostly the breadwinner. But that's not our culture. The culture and custom of Nigeria was that the father in the house was vested with the sole responsibility of providing for the family. And the mother's role was she was more or less a homemaker, and took care of the house, the food, and the children. That was what I grew up to know. Then all of a sudden, because of the war, the men were being conscripted. If they come out, they get conscripted into the Biafran military, or depending on where the war was, could be the Nigerians, they will shoot and kill and whatever they do, or hold them as prisoners of war. So the female took up the responsibility of doing what the men were doing. So in the morning, the men will now all file into the nearby bush and stay there and hide because to save their life. Then the women will go to this trading like Ahia attack or other market around, buy and sell, to put food on the table. For me, this was a big thing. And some of us grew up to become even the breadwinners because the male figures in the home could not do what they were doing according to our custom or our culture. So to me, it was a big thing. So, and I could see this with Mama Ife Yunwa and her husband Mazi Asika. I believe I'm calling it right. Uh-huh. So she was the one, she had of this Dua Dua who needed needle and thread. And she went over to get needle and thread on that. So whatever that you could lay your hands on, she was there to do it. And the other women, I'm just using her as example. So I really appreciate it because it grounded me. And I've been reading it. I can't put it down. I've been reading it, and wherever I am, I'm reading it. So I'm going to ask people, buy this book, not just buy it, read it, and try to appreciate it from old and to what it was during the Biafra and what's going on now. Because what I'm seeing now is a flow over from what I saw during the war. So buy, appreciate, but the most important thing is read it, read it, read it. And Mazi, I can't thank you enough for the explanations that you gave to Igbo words, expressions that you used in the book. And you, some of them I didn't even remember anymore. And I'm like, okay, okay. So there's so much to appreciate. There's so much to appreciate. So I'm just using this one, but there are so many other things that we can appreciate in this book. So I encourage everybody, whatever you do, read. We have two in my family. My husband has one, I have my own. So I believe that's the way it's supposed to go. Thank you so much.
This is it's very interesting how consistent the testimony has been upon reading the book about community, about what happens to a community when there is war. You know, I told many people that one book in modern times that's been written that I consider an epic is Adichie's Half of a Yellow Sun. So in Half of a Yellow Sun, there is a space. There's a place there where a woman is cradling the head of a child, wow, escaping from the north before the war, and that stays with you. I don't want to give off any, but there is a place in this book that traumatizes you, the rape of somebody, and then then it doesn't stop there. There's a return, and then there are conversations in your head about media will play louder, about what is moral and what is not moral, what is right, what is not wrong. So it's a very complex book, and I just want to thank you, Oga Cyril, for being so brave to write about a book with such a breadth and a depth of course it spoke to me because it was my, you know, it happened in my time, just as it happened in your time. I think it will be helpful to give you space on the electronic floor to Oga Cyril to tell us why you decided to write this book. I know, having known you for several decades, that you've read several books on the war, but you really felt that you needed to write something.
Thank you so much, Pai Kide. So I call him Town Crier. You know, that's what we used to call him in our forum way back in the 90s. So we go way back. And he has always been very supportive. You know, he was up there in the hierarchy in Maryland when I wrote Lamentation. And he took it through the chain, and it was really approved as, to be used in the school curriculum. So Oga Town Crier, we go way back. I do appreciate whatever he's been doing for me. And I told him we lost contact. And it was my daughter, Amaka, who said, oh, there is this Nigerian, he has millions of followers on X. At that time, it used to be Twitter. So, but anyway, that's just a side. But specifically, why did I write this book? That can be a conversation. We can be talking about that till tomorrow, but I'll make it simple. I'll just make 3 points. Number one, I believe that Igbo history is becoming extinct. Okay, just like Mrs. Ugoji said, the Igbos, whether we, whatever term we use, she and I, we kind of have a little bit of where we looked at the terminology. But be that as it may, the Igbo are a defeated people, and post-war narratives are often, determined by the victor.
Yeah.
So today, everything about Igbo seems to be negative, a bad word. And it's really very painful. As slightly informed, you can see these things and you cannot do anything about it. The least you can do is tell your story. And that's what I try to do here. I don't know, it is not, but again, maybe down the line, many, many years, who knows, somebody in my lineage will pick it up and say, where did I come from? I'm not suggesting that this gives you all the answers, but it may be a starting point instead of Ancestry.com. I wanted to leave a legacy, so I believe that this is it. So, another thing, during the war, the Igbo, we were so kind to ourselves. Kindness was not limited. Everybody took care of the other. But I wanted to acknowledge and put on record the benevolence of the people of Aragogo. Without them, I wouldn't be here. So that's the whole idea of Afia attack. That was where we were. My father was completely stricken. He was dead. He was a walking corpse when we got into Aragogo. And they nursed him back to life. So I wanted to pay tribute to them. The other thing is, one thing that you see about this book so far, and I got it from Ikide's point, the jotted points he gave me about his review. If you came to the book trying to read about the war, you'll be disappointed. I wasn't a soldier, so I couldn't have told you this is shells and all those things. I was just giving you as a small boy, I don't grow and listen or the way I saw it. So, and it was important to me also to recap that humble upbringing and where else could it have been that 34 Chukwane. So I thought I should really give the story of 34 Chukwane and then use the people, of 34 Chukwane to tell the story. So, I mean, I can expand on these points, but let me kind of leave it at that. The Igbo history, the benevolence of people of Aragogo, and to recap my humble upbringing, they can really be the the tripod on which we can build the reasons why I wrote the book. Thank you.
And I ask my fellow panelists to jump in with any questions that they have. I have one more question. I'm a student of the late great Chinua Achebe, and he wrote several great books of fiction. When it came to the war, he wrote There Was a Country, just a beautiful book. I reviewed that book. I was just taken by it. When he wrote that book, he chose not to use fiction as a medium. He just wrote from the beginning to the end. You could see his rage and his personal opinions about the war. But on the other hand, in your case, you chose fiction as a vehicle. And there are instances where I thought you struggled to contain the rage that you felt. about what happened. Why did you choose? I mean, don't get me wrong, it was successful in my opinion. But why did you choose fiction as opposed to just doing what Chinua Achebe did, which is basically, this is what you all did, and this is wrong?
Very simple. I'm not Chinua Achebe. And so who am I to have my name in the same sentence with Chinua Achebe or Chimamanda? So by the time the war broke, Chinua Achebe was already the director in the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
Correct.
So he was already way there. He took notes. He kept a diary. I didn't keep any of those things. So I have been very concerned about memoirs. I remember if you write a memoir and people eventually find that something was wrong, you know, it can really undo you. So this is really my best recollection. There is no doubt, you know, and as I said in the front matter of the book, everything discussed here really happened one way or the other, but the names were fictionalized. So I thought that using fiction will kind of relieve me of somebody who will come up tomorrow and say, you said this, I was there, you are lying. So that's essentially, you know, but I saw it in the review, in the notes you gave to me. Yeah, you know, clearly I fell short. And if I may use it to spin as a segue into another point you made in the review, you said that my book could have benefited from professional editors, okay, that you had this concern about self-published book. There is no doubt when a book is tagged self-published, you know, there is this sort of idea, oh, it's not good enough, that's why nobody could publish it. But that's not necessarily the truth. Anybody can go Google now. Any of these big houses will tell you, no, we don't want your book. Don't send to us. So unless you are a Chimamanda or Leta Achebe or Wole Soyinka or what are the big names. So the question becomes, if I keep waiting until any of these people will take my book, that may never happen, you know. So that's really the reason, you know, I went the route that I did go. And I suspect that there are many others. You know, the industry is really, it's tied. These big names, the Simon and Schusters and all those things, they tell you, no, we don't send any manuscript. We don't want to. If we want any manuscript, we will call you, say, Paikide, write us this. And I don't know when they're going to call Cyril. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you didn't wait. I'm glad you wrote and said, what's an all? The world must hear this. We are living in very interesting times. The book is struggling for relevance compared to social media, the internet. People are just writing. There's a democratization of narrative, and it's a good thing. Sometimes it's not a good thing. But yeah, I'm glad you wrote. I'm glad you didn't wait for Random House to pick you up before telling your truth. Ms. Amadi, Ms. Ugoji, please feel free to jump in and
sure.
Just before we jump in, we do have some hands in the audience. I want to make sure I'm getting to them.
Sure.
So for the first one, I'm going to actually allow Basil Ati to speak. So if you would like to, you can speak into the, you can unmute yourself and speak. Hold on, let's see.
Did you say Basil Oti or?
Yeah, Basil Oti.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Mazi Basil, if you're there, you can unmute yourself and speak. Otherwise, you can find another person.
No worries. Then we can go to the next person who was, I believe, let's see, Chibo Offer.
Chibo Offer.
So I'm going to,
okay, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Yep. You can speak.
Hello,
whenever.
hello, Mazi. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Is there any non-Igbo speaking person in our? Because I'll be talking in Aro. Uchenna, sorry. Mazi, you don't need to introduce me to your writing. I read Lamentation, and I read your writings all the time. As my brother, so full disclosure, I know your ability or abilities. So it didn't surprise me that the second book is out. I read the first book you wrote, Lamentation, which I enjoyed. The copy I have, I'm yet to enjoy it because of struggle. I haven't had time to read it. So when you are writing, it's not just for you, it's for me, because your experiences trickles down to my experiences or complements my experiences. So that is in the selfish analysis of what I see, because I lived through the war and I lived through struggle. So, and I saw every stuff that you already mentioned. So I encourage you, after this, write more. Longevity. I wish you long life to enjoy your grandkids to come. Look at Uchenna. He's an old man now. You are dragging him the other day by the hand. So I couldn't recognize him until I saw his name, Uchenna Oji. And I said, what do you mean? If I see him on the road, I'll pass him. So I wish you longevity to enjoy Uche. So it is just starting. The doctor gave you 3 grandkids. Uche is still here to come up with 3 more, 10 more. So you haven't just started. Longevity, health. You are a very smart brother, and you are doing the right thing. And I know your children are following your footsteps. And I don't want to take everybody's time. So the only reason I'm saying this, I'm not to speak in American tongue. So Igbo tongue, because we're all the same. So that way, we to let the kids know that we are seeing you through them, and they have to also match and surpass you. The same thing I said to my own kids. Listen, don't follow me, follow other people like Dr. Oji and the rest of them, and aspire. So your kids now have a tall task to aspire and be like you and surpass you. All I'm saying is I've enjoyed your writing. I've enjoyed being around you, and continue the good work. You have laid the foundation here, and you are laying the foundation in Aro. You have laid a solid foundation for the children, for their roots. So anybody that don't know you have to know that not only in America, but in Aro, you laid foundation for where these children will know where they belong. Very important. People always say, why should I build in Aro? You should build in Aro because if you don't have a place, Mazi, in Aro, as you have done so, Uchenna, the doctor, your first son, the doctor, will not have a route. They are not going to borrow going to Aro to other place. Whether you are here today or not here today, they will find that home, open the door, move in with their great-grandchildren. I thank you for that. It's an example, not just writing the book.
Thank you.
I implore every person dialing in to get a copy at your time, relax, and enjoy it. Thank you, Uche. Thank you. Thank you. I please accept my leaving because somebody called me. They lost their mom from Uturokigwe, a friend of mine. So I have to leave.
No problem.
Mazi, when I grow up, I know I have to be like Dr. Oji. You're always a humble man. Even in our family gathering, you're always a humble man. So, Mazi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Chiba Ofor.
All right, thank you, Uchenna.
Yeah.
Was I on camera because I didn't see myself?
No, you weren't on camera, but we were hearing you well. Thank you.
You restricted my camera.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you.
So we do, I want to make this as interactive as possible. We do have some more pledges. I see in the chat to everybody, my uncle Dennis from North Carolina, he pledged $500. So thank you so much to him. He and my father go back all the way, I guess, to childhood. They grew up in the same village. He says in the group chat, on behalf of my family, I'm supporting this launch donation of $500. I'm driving back from a trip and I'm joyous to listen to the wonderful panelist reviews. Good job, guys, from my uncle Dennis Ume Iboko. We also have a question from Leke and Elizabeth. I'm guessing this is for Dr. Cyril Orji. Where does the title First is Last come from? If you can answer that.
Oh, that is really an easy one. Most of what I did in this book is sort of I said it was a group project, but this was really one that I struggled with. After I wrote Lamentation, I had some critical reviews. I don't want to start mentioning their names. If I did only Oga Ikide, we remember them, they kept asking me, how did Lamentation come? How did this come? So when I was writing this book, I struggled. I started going through, I went to people I always looked up to, have difficulty mentioning their name and my name in the same sentence. I asked myself, Chimamanda, how did she come with half of a yellow song? I asked myself, Chinua Achebe, how did he come up with Things Fall Apart? I kept struggling with it. And it came to me one day, really, and I still have the paper, the scrap, where it's still here on my desktop, where I was crossing things. So I just said, hey, at the point, we are really the first in Nigeria. Even if we are really not the first, like we are never ahead of Yoruba or anything like that. But there was a time we were permanent secretaries, we were vice chancellors, we were directors of top parastatals. We were everything. But now, we are nothing, we are last. So that's how I came up with first has now become last. But I wanted to put it in a way that, not too long, not around this. So I just called it First is Last. So the Igbo, we were first, now we are the last. Thank you.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that explanation. I don't want to miss, but Mr. Basil Oti also supported $100. His chat, he also has a chat in the group chat saying he's apologizes his wife and himself had technical difficulties, but he's pledging $100 to support the launching of this book. So we really appreciate that from Mr. Basil Oti. We have some questions in the audience. I'm not sure if you want to Pai Akide, should we address these questions? We have some hands raised.
Sure.
Okay, great. Like we said, we want to make this as interactive as possible. So I'm going to allow Afam Anigbogu to speak. He is a friend of my father's. He lives in the same area. So
if we could limit to 30 seconds, a minute each, that would help.
Yes, exactly. So just want to limit to make sure we have a chance for everyone to speak. You can just give me a second to allow you to talk. There you go. You can unmute yourself, Afam, and
yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Okay, thank you. It is my honor to share my opinion about First is Last. You see, I've read several books, or books of all types. One of the challenges I often see when you read some books is that you struggle to understand what the author is trying to present. That truly is not the case here. Doctor, and I'm not saying this because I know Dr. Oji. Now, the way he wrote this book, I wish he could translate this style when he's actually engaging in some conversations with me. This book is clearer to me than when I have conversations with him, either because because he knows me too well, but this book is so interesting. I shared a copy just some excerpts with my one of my friends who served with the Nigerian army. Actually, he fought in the front at Enugu, and I was saying to him, you get to see some of the kind of things Nigeria did to the Igbo civility. And he's actually asking me to send him a full copy because he's now interested. And I want to say that not only do we keep this book to ourselves, we have to find a way to discuss it with some of the actual participants in the theater of war. I know this guy, he's actually a lieutenant general right now in Kaduna. And I know definitely he fought in the Enugu sector. And I wanted him to get a glimpse of what the coefficients of war. And this book is going to serve on so many fronts, psychologically and otherwise. So I want to thank Dr. Oji and all the efforts actually you did. Not do this alone. There are so many people, Uchen, Oji, and the rest of them and the family. Well, more to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And now for Anthony, I'm going to allow Anthony to speak. So you can unmute yourself and please keep your comments brief so we can continue to discuss the book.
Please unmute me. Unmute me.
Yes.
I can't unmute myself.
Yes,
we can hear you.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
You hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm very happy to be here in your midst. And as a matter of fact, I want to show my sincere appreciation to Dr. Cyril Oji. He's a very good friend. And it's good that he put his perspective regarding what the history of the Igbos were, in the book. I am a living example. I was a child soldier. I was recruited. I fought. I know our experience moving. We were shipped back from Yoruba land, from Lagos to Port Harcourt. We suffered the impact of the Civil War severely, but we don't need to dwell on that because that's already the past. But it's good to always put so that the younger ones to know the history, because history is who you are, your language, your culture, and what you belong to. Also, I haven't read the book, but as a matter of fact, I'm very pleased that he's able to put it in writing so that it will be one of the 80 books or 81 books that have been written. I am encouraging him to do more because the French language, the Latin language, edus, you pull out. That's where the word education came from. Pull out. So whatever talent you have, pull it out. As you are pulling it out, Uchenna, who is your first son, and the rest of the siblings are there and they are learning from you. And Hage exactly the way you did. So I am encouraging you and I am very appreciative that you did it. My pledge is for $300. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much, Anthony. I also see Sunny Orokwe, so I will allow Sunny to speak briefly.
Orokwe. Okay.
Yes, Ndewo Mazi. I thank and appreciate the panel. Oh, by the way, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Particularly to Mazi's trilogy. I believe I was much too junior to know you direct, but I also grew up in Enugu, and I know where Chukwuani Street is. My family has and as the Civil War broke out, I was just 18 then. And not only that, by the time I came to the United States, Mazi Cyril Oji was one of the first people I got acquainted with. And ever since then, I've been admiring him. And now he came out with a very high profile, intellectual property thrown out there, which I believe in future would face challenges from across country Nigeria authors, because he clearly took a position. My thing is, first shall be the last, cut into different segments. The first segment is through Aro tradition and culture, where the first son is assumed to get all the inheritance. That's where my mind went first. Then other areas you can look at it from is from the Igbo perspective, where we the Igbos think we are the first. Mark my word, think. From what history is presenting, because I follow history too. We don't appear to be the first in certain terms and in certain areas. All right, we could be smart people. We the Igbos are smart, or rather we are blessed with smartness in the project called Nigeria. And we are able to do certain things. If you ask me within a limited short of time, and I will differentiate smartness from intelligence. And we accomplished certain things within a very short period of time in the project Nigeria. That doesn't make us the first. If we look at historical project Nigeria, the Igbos are not the first. If we look at educational, there are some people that are ahead of us.
We'll have to wrap it up.
Yep.
Yes. Mazi, I think this is just the beginning of this book. There's going to be an enlarged intellectual forum that would discuss this book. Mazi, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that was the end for the hand raises so far. So I want to pass it back to Paikide.
I think that was essentially the Q&A
If I may.
session. Go ahead, Mrs.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Yes, Pi had thrown at to panelists. One of them had any questions and or comments, perhaps for Mazi Cyril. I do have one. So Mazi Orji, in the initial manuscript and in reviews, I had asked about a certain character regarding a certain phenomenon from a healthcare professional perspective that I thought was really rather futuristic and progressive on your part to tackle, because I remember mentioning to you that my review was that you were candid and courageous and refreshingly progressive in bringing up that subject. And that subject was the phenomenon of couples' childlessness with regard to the Igbos' fervent placement of importance in childbearing and the continuity, of the family. In that initial review and in that initial manuscript, you had alluded to the character Angela and her husband. And I commended you for courageously and candidly tackling on that particular aspect of life that makes the Igbos, in other words, that goes into the collective of what makes the Igbos humanistic. And I believe that one of the things that brings to the forefront the complexities that help them to survive, in their resilience to this impact of this Biafra war. I believe in the current that has been phased out, and I'm wondering why, because I thought it was part of the combination. And I thought in the Igbo context, which is a really rather male chauvinistic culture prevalently, that is an often not mentioned phenomenon. And I applauded you for tackling that. I'm wondering why that has been obscured.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay.
Do you hear me now? Yeah. So thank
Yes.
you. Yeah, thank you, Evangeline. You know, you and I went over this a lot. So if you look at the acknowledgement, the only person outside the family, so to say, that had an inside track on this book, you know, is Evangeline. She did initial review. Somebody can mute their phone. So,
Come on, chicken.
yeah. So the point I'm trying to see how to really answer this question succinctly, just for the audience, so that they can have a good context. There was a story. There was an initial manuscript. Okay. So this book was a little bit, if I see part of Ikide's comments, was like, there seem to have been so many things. One said, oh, it's a little bit confusing. And even my wife, my daughter-in-law, many people said, oh, look, there are so many, you're confusing a lot. There were so many issues. So one of the initial challenges was, how do I really focus on as much as I could focus, even as much as I tried to focus now, there were a lot of, you know, there's still a lot in it. The point that Evangeline is making was that in that initial manuscript, there was this situation of a childless couple, okay, essentially in our, you know, paternal, male-oriented families. If you have issues in family, they usually blame the lady, say it's her fault. Without going into much details, that may be in another work I may do later on, it really turned out in this particular case that it was actually the man who was impotent. So there was a story to show how brave this lady was. I remember essentially they forced the lady to go to this cherubim and seraphim church, and some of the apostles will come at night and molest the women and all those kind of things. And this woman wouldn't have any of it. So she rubbed this camwood in her hands and used it to rub on the Holy Spirit that was coming to visit her at night. And it really became a big issue. And eventually, that marriage, I think, maybe I'm mixing it up, but maybe eventually that marriage failed. She went on to marry another man and had kids, and the husband went and married another woman, and the same problem stayed. This story did not make this book. So Evangeline has been on the case. Why did you remove it? It's an important part of it. But my point is that no. I don't see where it fits into what became my focus on this book. Just tell my experiences of the war and kind of talk a little bit of my childhood and carry the people of 34 Chukwu on the street to tell the story. Thank you.
So there'll be perhaps a follow-up book.
So in my follow-up comment, if I may, Pa Ikide, please.
Sure.
Thank you, Mazi Oji, for your candid explanation and admission. I just personally, in conclusion, didn't see where that took away from the book at all. And I remember mentioning that to you, and I still hold on to that. It would not have taken anything away at all. However, at the end, I maintain my commendation of you to tackle that issue and bring that to the forefront. I thought that was really rather futuristic, courageous, and brave of you, because again, it's a phenomenon that's never spoken of in the context of the male chauvinistic culture that is that of the Igbos. Okay, so I commend you nonetheless. However, in conclusion, I also mentioned, and I would say, I'll put it out there, I suggested and I encouraged you to perhaps look into screenplay adaptation of this book with all the different characters and all the multiple complex factors that made the Igbo people a human. You understand? And all the factors that played into their resilience of the survival of this year Nigerian Holocaust, that is Biafra. And so I eagerly look forward to the screenplay adaptation of this book for everybody's consumption.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
And let me answer that real quickly. So why I appreciate, the support everybody is giving to me here, I also encourage people, if you know people who can help me take the book to a higher level, because hey, look, let's say even if we get 2,000 of us to buy this book, the money actually goes to what do you call it, Amazon. Amazon does the whole thing, is print on demand. Even the ones I have, I bought them, although they sell to me on a discount as the author. So even if I sold 2,000 copies, that really, it is until you get the book in a wider audience, like you said, this screenplay adapted to a Netflix series or some of this. But, somebody, if you know who can help, if you know any contacts, let me put it out there. That really will be, in addition to the support you've given here, that will really be the next level. And, you gave me some pointers, Evangeline. I'm pursuing them. I haven't really gotten much much traction there, but I appreciate, the efforts you've made in that direction. Thank you.
All right,
no problem. I'll keep on it.
Thank you. So I think one thing I would like to do, we've pretty much hit most of our points on the agenda today. I want to know, is Charles still here? Mazi Charles Opareke, is he still here? Let's see. Yes. So Charles, I would like to invite you again just to reiterate your point from earlier. And then after that, we can close out with Pai Kide and Dr. Cyril Orji.
All right.
We can hear you, yep.
The following people have donated money towards the launching of this book. Mr. Alex Aganwa, $100. Mazi and Adamazi Andrew Oji, $100. Mazi and Adamazi Emma Odinakachi, in addition to what he just gave when he made a speech, also donated $100. Mazi and Adamazi Charles Obareke, $100. Dr. and Norma Okoro Babi, $200. Chief Levy and Miss Liz Onwucheruba, $200. Mr. Ebere Emezia, $100. Dr. Chika Ike, $100. Dr. Nkechi Onwuzurike, $100. Okay, the rest of the names are people who just bought the books, and you have they paid $30 towards the book. Mazi and Adamazi Maurice Ezuma, $30. Mazi and Adamazi Kingsley Kano, $30. Mazi Charles Oji, Mazi Chika Ihe Binando, and Mazi Anthony Uchebulam, $30. So these are the people who have so far supported this book. So I'm calling that everybody, who has not supported, please Zelle their donation to Cyril at the email address. He has his email hooked up to. Let me pull it up.
Yes, it's cyorg@yahoo.com.
Yahoo.com.
Yeah. So that is his email. You can Zelle the money to his email address.
It works.
So this is today is good. This is very good. So we will continue behind the scenes supporting Dr. Cyril for a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mazio Opareke. We also have some more donations in the chat. Our distinguished panelist, Mrs. Ugoji, she pledged $250. So thank you so much for that pledge. Barbara also pledged $500. So thank you so much from Barbara and Anthony. We really appreciate it. IK Allison pledged $100. Wow, it's all coming in. My nieces, Naomi, Kaya, and Zaria pledged $300. I'm not sure where they got that money, but we thank you for we thank you for the $300. We have Alunwa. They're pledging $300 to support the launching of this book. Congrats, brother. So thank you so much to all these pledges that are all coming in now. We really appreciate it. We do have some hands. I'm not sure what we want to do, Pa Akide.
Well, let's wrap it up in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can take a couple of questions, and then we need to wrap it up.
Yeah. So we have 2 hands now. So that will be Basil Oti and IK Allison. If you can keep your comments short, because we have to wrap it up and for the closing remarks. So I'll allow Basil Oti to speak. Let's see. Hold on. Okay, you can unmute yourself, Mr. Oti.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Oh, finally. Well, I've been trying to, say something, but I was having difficulties with our devices here. But I just want to congratulate my friend, my brother, CY, for a job well done. And I am also commending you on behalf of Amovi Village, Arochukwu, for a job well done. Thank you, and may God bless you. I've really enjoyed this panel presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate those kind words. And for the last hand, we have IK Allison. I'll allow you to speak now. You can unmute. Yep.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I joined late. I don't want to repeat what everyone has said. All I want to say is big congratulations to Dr. Cyril Orji. He's been in the forefront in all the cultural and fundraising activities that we've been backing here in the Tri-State. He has led our organization here in the Tri-State, Nsukka, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So big kudos to him. We are proud of you, what you're doing. Please just accept the little token, $100. Myself and my wife, Onyechi, Carol Allison, have pledged. I will redeem the pledge as soon as we can. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Pa Akide.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this launching has exceeded my expectations by a large margin. I just want to thank everybody that helped in the preparation to get us to this point. As for my fellow panelists, Miss Ugoji and Miss Amadi, all I can say is you need to take your show on the road. Both of you made this so much worth it. When we were doing a prep, I was under the impression that I was just going to be the reviewer, and it occurred to me, these people are better than you. Let them do the damn review. And I'm glad that they did. There will be other opportunities, I suspect, to talk on social media, to talk about this book. And I hope that you can make time to support Dr. Orji in this worthwhile effort. I just want to thank the sons and the daughter for their high quality support. This is how it is done. We have worked very hard in life, and it's always good to look back and say, this journey was worth it. Look at our kids. You guys have done well. I'm really, really pleased. I will now turn it over to Dr. Orji Ogasiri for final closing.
So, Dottie, real quickly. I'm seeing Uncle Zeph's hand raised. I feel like I have to answer Uncle Zeph. So let me allow Uncle Zeph to speak just really quickly. So, Uncle Zeph Uwaneri, I'm going to allow you to speak. If you can unmute yourself.
Congratulations, my brother, Dr. CY. When I call your name, the hair on my body stands at 90 degrees. Why is that? Because it looks like you are a forerunner of every other Nigerian. I'm not talking about the Igbo race, Nigeria as a whole. You mean a lot to me, you mean a lot to my family, you mean a lot to the society we belong in. And I thank you for taking the first step in doing what I've been planning to do all along. I wasn't going to write on the premise of the first is last. I was just going to write things that pertain to the childhood experience I had growing up during the war. I did not participate in the war, but you mentioned it in passing there. I was flogged along with Dr. Chukunta each time we went to the Umunachi military training grounds for them to recruit us. And they said, "You guys are too young to be in the army. You're too young. If you got into the army and got killed, who else will represent us?" So that was our saving grace. But you touched a lot of things that we will have to carry forward as the template for the next generation of the first is last. Thank you. And I and my wife are pledging $100 to support this cause. Thank you for opening the door. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Uncle Zeph. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for those kind words. All right, Dottie, you're the last word.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to make it very brief. Even though I've been sitting here, I will be a little bit incoherent, but let me kind of just hit the point. The first point I really want to ask is, please, everybody here, everything you've said here is like a review of the book. So please put it down in writing and upload it to Amazon. If you don't know how to do it, call me, I'll help you because it helps. If you go to my book page now, there is not even a single review, and that doesn't help the book. I'm going to hold the panelists to a more formal review. But even if whatever statements you can make, so that then I go to, and I'm really taking this in no particular order because, I'm not really that organized here. I want to say that my backbone in New York, New Jersey is Nzukaru, okay? So when we were planning this webinar, I didn't know whether it was going to succeed or it didn't succeed. But look, at the back of my mind, I said Nzukaru people will be there. So that was it for me. They are my people. I love them. They love me. So, I don't know what else I can do here without them. Then I'll go to Mrs. Ugoji, Evangeline. She's become a family friend. She worked on this book in and out. We had our differences of opinion, but hey, she is somebody you want to have on your corner. Then by Ikide, you hear him call me Oga Sire. That's what they call me in our forum. We call him town crier. If we want to get out any message, we give it to the town crier. Look, when my daughter, told me, hey, there is this Nigeria. So when I told we go a long way. I've been to his house in Maryland. Look, Ikide, I can tell you, I knew you will help me, but to have exceeded my wildest expectation. The only thing I can tell you is, on the day of your need, may God send you a helping hand. You've been a helping hand for me. God will send you a helping hand on your day of need.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I said in this book that You know, I'm proud of this book. It may be poor quality, it may be anything, but I did it. But look, I couldn't have done it without my family. You know, when I see Uchenna doing it here, doing it there, you know, I am very proud of them. You know, I'm not really boasting or anything, but they have really been very, very supportive to my, you know, and once we finished the first stage and then we came to this production stage, Uchenna and my daughter-in-law, Monica, took it over. Whatever Monica cannot do on Instagram or TikTok doesn't exist there. Nobody can do it. So all Uchenna and I have to do is we put it together and we ship it to her. You know, my wife is here. She will beat me up, but she's always that final. She's, you know, when she says it, I filter it. You know that whatever she tells you, you go that way. That will be that. You know, it's just been a wonderful family experience that, you know, they have really all exceeded my wildest imagination. I didn't want to call Mrs. Amadi differently because I have captured her in that Nzukaro, you know, umbrella. But she's one special person. You know, when this book started, you know, we had plans of really putting this book out, which didn't pan out the way we, you know, we tried our best. She was one of the first persons I called, say, help me. And she would ask me, when do you need it? I say, yesterday. And she will get it done yesterday. So, I mean, it's been really, I mean, I just don't know what to say, but I really thank everybody. Finally, I never expected to have the audience I have here. Okay, please, you know, people, look, today is the first opening season for football. People left it and came here. I am humbled. I am honored. On the day you call me, I will be there for you. Thank you so much. God bless you. And before we go, I don't know if my very, very trusted friend, Reverend Felix, whether he is still on the line from or whether he has dropped.
Let me go check. Let's see. I can check in the panelists. Let's see. Unfortunately, no. Yeah, I'm not seeing him.
Yeah, because you know, because the guy that said the opening prayers, he is my life in Nigeria. He's a trusted friend. Let me just leave it at that. Thank you all for coming. God bless you. I owe you all. Uchenna is yours.
All right, signing out. Thank you guys so much for coming. You'll have all the links there in the chat, how to support, how to buy the book, how to follow my father on Instagram and TikTok, and sorry, YouTube and all these different social medias. So we really appreciate you guys for coming out, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Please send a copy of the recording via email if you can.
Of course, definitely.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Uchenna, just allow people to drop out. Don't end it. Allow them to drop out at their own time, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, Uchenna, I think, okay, see, in on a mute. Okay, because thank you so much. I got powers in later off the line.
Yeah. Okay, I'll end it. Okay.
Okay, though.
Alrighty.
See, in on a mute, everything you could